3 months. That's all I had to wait. 3 more months of pretending to be the perfect fiancé, and I'd have locked down the security I needed while keeping my options open. But I got greedy, impatient, and now I'm sitting in my childhood bedroom at 31, scrolling through wedding venues I'll never use and staring at a ring finger that's painfully empty. My name is Ashley, and I'm the woman who destroyed a 4-year relationship because I couldn't keep my mouth shut about wanting to sleep with my coworker. But let me start from the beginning, because despite what my ex-fiancé Blake thinks, this wasn't some sudden urge that came out of nowhere. This was years in the making, a slow burn of resentment and boredom that I managed poorly. No, scratch that. That I managed like a complete idiot. Blake and I met when we were 27. I was fresh out of another relationship that had ended when my ex caught me texting someone I shouldn't have been texting. Blake didn't know about that, of course. I painted myself as the heartbroken girl who'd been cheated on, and he bought it completely. Sweet, trusting Blake, who thought he'd found a woman who understood the pain of betrayal. The truth was, I'd been the cheater in every relationship I'd ever had. Not because I was evil or broken or any of that psychological nonsense. I just got bored easily. The excitement would wear off, usually around the 2-year mark, and I'd start noticing other men. Their newness, their mystery, the thrill of the chase. My girlfriends all did the same thing. We just had different strategies for managing it. Just don't get caught, my friend Megan would say. What they don't know won't hurt them. Or find a guy who's okay with it, suggested Lisa, who'd somehow convinced her husband that an open marriage was evolved and mature. The key is to make them think it's their idea, Claire added. She'd been in an open relationship for 3 years, though she was the only one who ever took advantage of it. We'd have these conversations over bottomless mimosas at our favorite brunch spot in downtown Austin, comparing notes like we were discussing investment strategies instead of destroying men's lives. The trick, Lisa explained one Sunday, is to start small. Mention how your coworker's open relationship seems to be working. Drop articles about monogamy being unnatural. Plant seeds. I took mental notes, filing away every manipulation tactic for future use. My friends were my advisors in this game, and I was determined to win. I thought I was smarter than all of them. I thought I could have it all, the stability of Blake, who was climbing the ladder at his tech company, and the excitement of whoever caught my eye. The wedding was supposed to seal the deal. Once we were married, it would be harder for him to leave. More complicated, more expensive. God, I was an idiot. The first 2 years with Blake were actually good. He was attentive, romantic, successful enough to split a nice apartment in Austin with me. He cooked elaborate dinners, remembered every anniversary, and looked at me like I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. My friends were jealous. My parents loved him. Even my cynical younger sister admitted he was one of the good ones. But by year 3, the shine had worn off. Blake's romantic gestures became predictable. Italian on Fridays, flowers on the 14th of every month, our month-iversary, which had been cute at first, but now made me roll my eyes. Sex on Tuesdays and Saturdays, same positions, same routine. He'd gained a little weight, started wearing those cargo shorts I explicitly told him I hated. Spent entire Sundays watching football with his friend James instead of taking me somewhere Instagram-worthy. The spark's gone, I complained to the girls over drinks one night. He doesn't even try anymore. Girl, that's just comfortable love, Megan said. My ex used to buy me jewelry every week. Turned out he was compensating for banging his secretary. At least Blake's faithful, Lisa added. Boring and faithful beats exciting and cheating. But I didn't want boring and faithful. I wanted heart-racing, can't keep your hands off me passion, and security. Why should I have to choose? That's when Connor started at my company. The first time I saw him, I was giving a presentation on quarterly projections. He walked in late, apologizing in this deep voice that made me lose my train of thought. 6'3", shoulders that filled out his suit perfectly, and green eyes that seemed to see right through my professional facade. "Sorry for the interruption," he said, flashing a smile that probably cost his parents thousands in orthodontia. Please, continue. I'm very interested in what you have to say. I fumbled through the rest of my presentation, hyper-aware of his attention. Afterward, he approached me at the coffee machine. Great presentation, he said. I'm Connor, new to the strategic planning team. Ashley, I managed, hating how breathless I sounded. I know who you are. Everyone's been telling me you're the one to watch here. He leaned against the counter, just close enough that I could smell his cologne. Maybe you could show me the ropes? I'd love to pick your brain over coffee sometime. I should have said no. Should have mentioned Blake, my engagement, the wedding planning that consumed my weekends. Instead, I heard myself saying, I'd love to. Connor was everything Blake had stopped being. 6'3" with arms that showed he actually used that gym membership. Fresh out of business school with ambition that radiated off him like cologne. He wore tailored suits and had this laugh that made everyone in the office turn their heads. When he looked at me during meetings, I felt that familiar flutter I hadn't felt with Blake in over a year. New guy's hot, Megan texted me after Connor's first day. Dibs, I replied, only half joking. The flirting started innocent enough. Coffee runs where we'd accidentally reach for the same stirrer. Lunch meetings that ran long because we were really diving deep into the quarterly projections. Happy hours where he'd sit just a little too close, his knee brushing mine under the table. You're engaged, right? He asked one night after our third round of drinks. For now, I said, then laughed like it was a joke. But we both knew it wasn't. It was a Thursday evening when things almost went too far. The office was nearly empty, and I was staying late to finish a report when Connor appeared at my desk, loosening his tie. Still here? He perched on the edge of my desk, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. Big presentation tomorrow, I managed, hyper-aware of how his thigh was inches from my keyboard. The Singapore project? When I nodded, he leaned closer, ostensibly to look at my screen. I've been analyzing their market data. Want me to take a look? For the next hour, we worked side by side, his cologne making me dizzy, our hands occasionally brushing as we pointed at figures. When he suggested we move to the conference room to spread out the documents, I knew I was walking into dangerous territory, but I went anyway. Your ring's beautiful, he said suddenly, catching my left hand as I reached for a paper. His thumb traced over the diamond, and I swear I stopped breathing. Blake's a lucky man. Is he? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Connor's eyes darkened, and for a moment we just stared at each other. The conference room felt airless, electric. Then his phone buzzed, a text from the CrossFit instructor he'd just started dating, and the spell broke. Blake, oblivious Blake, noticed nothing. He was too busy planning our November wedding, sending me links to honeymoon destinations and asking my opinion on groomsmen gifts. I'd respond with emoji hearts while sexting Connor from the bathroom. The guilt was minimal. Blake was a good guy, sure, but wasn't I entitled to passion, to excitement, to feeling desired by someone who didn't wear New Balance sneakers and think Olive Garden was fancy? My friends agreed I deserved more. Life's too short to settle, Lisa said during one of our wine nights. You only live once, Megan added. Just be careful, Claire warned. Make sure you've got the ring on before you rock the boat. But by August, 3 months before the wedding, I couldn't take it anymore. Connor had started dating some CrossFit instructor, and suddenly our flirting had boundaries. Professional boundaries. He'd stopped lingering by my desk, stopped texting after hours, stopped looking at me like I was the only woman in the room. I was furious, also desperate. The wedding was approaching, and the thought of locking myself into monogamy with Blake while Connor paraded his new girlfriend around the office made me physically ill. That's when I remembered Lisa's open marriage. How she got to have her stability and her fun. How her husband seemed fine with it, or at least resigned to it. If she could make it work, why couldn't I? I spent weeks researching, reading articles about how monogamy was outdated, how open relationships were the future, how jealousy was just social conditioning. I practiced my pitch in the mirror, crafting arguments about trust and growth and evolution. I even bought a book about polyamory to leave strategically on our coffee table. "What's this?" Blake asked one evening, picking up the book. "Oh, just something Lisa recommended," I said casually. "Her marriage has gotten so much stronger since they opened it up. It's fascinating stuff." He flipped through a few pages, frowning. "This seems like a recipe for disaster." "Only for people who aren't mature enough to handle it," I said, planting the seed of challenge. If Blake prided himself on anything, it was being rational and mature. I spent the next 2 weeks dropping hints, mentioning how my coworker's girlfriend was so cool about him having drinks with female colleagues, pointing out articles about celebrities in open relationships, casually bringing up how possessiveness was really just insecurity in disguise. Blake seemed oblivious, but I knew the ideas were percolating in his subconscious. At least that's what Claire had told me would happen. "Men need to think everything is their idea," she'd advised. "Plant the seeds, water them with subtle suggestions, and wait for them to bloom." But Connor's new relationship had made me impatient. Every day I had to watch him bring that CrossFit girl lunch, see her perfect abs on his Instagram stories, hear him talk about their weekend plans. It was torture. Here I was, stuck planning centerpieces and arguing about +1s, while Connor was living his best life with someone who probably didn't even care about month-iversaries. The Sunday I brought it up, Blake was in full wedding planning mode. Seating charts spread across our dining table, his laptop open to our wedding website. He looked so happy, so content, so utterly clueless about the bomb I was about to drop. "Blake," I said, sitting down next to him, "we need to talk about something." He looked up, probably expecting me to finally have an opinion about the napkin colors. "What's up, babe?" "I've been thinking about our future, about what kind of marriage we want to have." "The happy kind?" He smiled, reaching for my hand. I pulled back slightly. "I mean, what structure we want. Traditional marriages don't really work anymore. The divorce rate is so high, I think we should consider alternatives." The confusion on his face was almost comical. Alternatives? An open relationship. Open marriage, technically, once we're married. I launched into my practiced speech about evolution and growth and how it would actually strengthen our bond. I talked for 20 minutes straight, watching his face go from confused to shocked, to something I couldn't quite read. When I finished, he was quiet for so long I thought he'd gone into shock. "Is there someone else?" His voice was calm, too calm. "No," I lied automatically. "This is about us. About making sure we don't become another statistic. But you've thought about someone else, someone specific." How did he know? Was I that transparent? "There's this guy at work." "Connor." My blood went cold. "How do you talk about him constantly, Ashley." Connor's presentation this, Connor's idea that. I'm not stupid. "Nothing's happened." Which was technically true, though not for lack of trying on my part. "But you want it to." I should have lied, should have backtracked, blamed it on wedding jitters or too much wine. Instead, I doubled down. "I just think we should be realistic about human nature. Attraction doesn't stop just because we're wearing rings." Blake's hand shook as he set down his coffee mug, the world's best fiancé mug I'd bought him last Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "Say that again," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the dishwasher. "I said I think we should consider an open dash." "Stop." He held up his hand, and I noticed his grandmother's wedding ring, the one he'd had resized to give to me, catching the light. "Just stop." "Are you seriously telling me, 3 months before our wedding, after 4 years together, after I've spent $20,000 on deposits, after my entire family has booked flights from Seattle, that you want to fuck other people?" The vulgarity shocked me. Blake never cursed. "It's not about that. Then what is it about Ashley? He stood up so fast his chair scraped against the hardwood floor we'd spent weeks picking out together. Please, enlighten me. What is this really about? I watched him pace, noting the gray creeping into his temples that hadn't been there when we met. When had that happened? When had I stopped noticing these little changes in the man I claimed to love? Remember when we first moved in together? His voice cracked. You cried because you were so happy. You said you'd never felt so safe, so loved. What happened to that girl? She grew up, I said defensively. She realized that fairy tales aren't real. No, Blake said quietly, walking to our bedroom. I heard drawers opening, hangers clanging. She just decided I wasn't enough of a fairy tale. You're right, he said when he returned, and for a moment I thought I'd won. Then he continued, which is why I need that ring back. The next hour was a blur. Me crying, begging, trying to take it all back. Him calmly packing a bag, saying he'd give me 30 days to move out since I wasn't on the lease. Me screaming that he was overreacting, that I was just trying to be honest, that he was throwing away 4 years over a conversation. You threw away 4 years the moment you decided I wasn't enough, he said at the door. The conversation just made it official. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Blake told everyone the truth. His parents, my parents, our friends. No sugarcoating, no protecting my reputation. Just the facts. His fiancée wanted to sleep with other men 3 months before their wedding. Monday morning came like a punishment. I'd spent the weekend fielding calls from wedding vendors, canceling everything while trying not to cry. But nothing prepared me for walking into the office. The first sign something was wrong was Hannah, the receptionist, avoiding eye contact. Then I noticed the sudden silence when I entered the break room, conversations halting mid-sentence. Ashley, my boss, Patricia, appeared at my cubicle before I'd even logged into my computer. Conference room, now. As I followed her, I caught whispers. Heard she propositioned Connor? Poor Blake sent an email to HR. Always wondered why she stayed late. In the conference room, Patricia slid a printed email across the table. Blake had sent a professional but devastating message to my company's HR department, warning them about potential workplace harassment issues. He'd attached screenshots of texts I'd sent about Connor, nothing explicit but damning in context. This is highly inappropriate, Patricia said. Connor Morrison has requested to be moved to a different department to avoid any uncomfortable situations. My career, like my relationship, was crumbling fast. My parents were mortified. My dad, who'd been so proud to walk me down the aisle, couldn't even look at me. My mom cried for days, not for my pain, but for Blake's. Even my sister, who'd always taken my side, just shook her head and said, "You had one of the good ones, and you blew it for what? Some guy who's not even interested?" The confrontation with my parents happened the day after I moved home. I was unpacking my things, shoving designer dresses into my teenage closet, when my mother appeared in the doorway. "We need to talk about what you've done," she said, her voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. What I've done? I was just trying to be honest about my needs. Honesty isn't asking for a hall pass, my father cut in, his face etched with disappointment. Honesty would have been telling Blake you were unhappy, not asking for his permission to cheat. Stop! My mother's voice was sharp. Blake called us. He told us everything, how you've been emotionally cheating with your coworker, how you wanted permission to physically cheat, how you thought you could manipulate him into accepting it. That's not... He also mentioned this isn't the first time you've done this. My mother's eyes were hard. He did some digging after you broke up. Talked to your ex, Ryan. Funny how Ryan's story about why you two broke up is very different from yours. My blood ran cold. You talked to Ryan. Blake did. Apparently you were sexting multiple men while engaged to Ryan too. The only difference is Ryan didn't catch you until after the wedding invitations went out. I sank onto my bed, the fight draining out of me. That was different. How? My father's voice cracked. How was it different, Ashley? How many good men are you going to destroy before you realize the problem is you? They left me there, surrounded by the debris of my life, to contemplate that question. The answer was apparently all of them, because within a week every ex-boyfriend Blake had reached out to had confirmed similar stories. I was a serial cheater who played the victim, and now everyone knew it. Connor, for his part, distanced himself immediately once word got around the office. Turned out his CrossFit girlfriend was pregnant, and he was planning to propose. He looked at me with pity now, like I was some desperate woman who'd humiliated herself, which I guess I was. My friends were no help. Lisa's husband had filed for divorce 2 months earlier. Turns out he wasn't as fine with the open marriage as she'd thought. Megan was dealing with her own cheating scandal. Only Claire still had her arrangement, but even she admitted it was hanging by a thread. I moved back into my childhood bedroom. Lavender walls, boy band posters, and all. At 31, I was single, living with my parents, and had become the cautionary tale in my friend group. The woman who had it all and threw it away for a fantasy. Blake blocked me on everything, but I still check his social media from fake accounts. He's dating someone new now, a kindergarten teacher who looks at him like he hangs the moon. In their photos, he looks happier than he ever did with me. Lighter, free. Connor got married last month. I wasn't invited, obviously, but I saw the pictures on Instagram. His wife is beautiful, glowing, everything I'm not. They look genuinely in love in a way that makes my chest ache. I've tried dating apps, but word travels fast in Austin. Turns out men aren't eager to date a woman who tried to negotiate sleeping around before she even got married. The ones who do match with me only want one thing, and it's not a relationship. "You made your bed," my mother said last week when I complained about being single. "Now you have to lie in it. Alone." She's right. I had everything I claimed to want: a devoted partner, a beautiful wedding planned, a future mapped out. And I destroyed it because I confused boredom with incompatibility, routine with settling, stability with prison. The truth I'm only now admitting. Blake was enough. More than enough. He was a good man who loved me completely, and I was too selfish and short-sighted to value what I had. I let my friends' toxic advice and my own grass-is-greener mentality convince me I deserved more, when what I really deserved was exactly what I got. Nothing. Now I spend my evenings scrolling through wedding hashtags, torturing myself with photos of women who were smart enough to recognize a good thing. Women who understood that the excitement of a new relationship always fades, but a partner who cooks you dinner and plans month-iversaries and looks at you like you're perfect even in cargo shorts, that's irreplaceable. I found my old journals from when Blake and I first started dating. Page after page of gushing about how perfect he was, how lucky I felt, how I couldn't wait to marry him. When did I become so ungrateful? When did enough become not enough? 3 months. If I'd just kept my mouth shut for 3 more months, I'd be married now. Secure. Still bored probably, but bored with a beautiful ring and a devoted husband and a future. Instead, I'm applying for apartment shares with strangers and dodging concerned looks from relatives who whisper about poor Ashley when they think I can't hear. Blake's friend James ran into me at the grocery store last week. He looked through me like I was invisible. When I said hi, he just shook his head and walked away. Can't blame him. I'm the villain in this story, and everyone knows it. But the worst confrontation came a month after the breakup. I was at Target, buying wine and ice cream like the cliché I'd become, when I heard my name. Ashley? I turned to find Connor's girlfriend, fiancée now, standing there with her perfect CrossFit body and her engagement ring catching the fluorescent lights. "Hi, Sarah," I managed. "I heard what happened with Blake," she said. her voice sympathetic in a way that made me want to disappear. "I'm really sorry." "Thanks," I mumbled, trying to edge past her. "Can I give you some advice?" She didn't wait for an answer. "Woman to woman?" "Stop chasing men who belong to other people. Stop trying to fill whatever void you have inside with the attention of unavailable men. Connor told me about your interest in him. How you used to find excuses to touch him at work. The inappropriate texts you tried to send before he blocked your number." My face burned. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The screenshots say otherwise." She smiled, but it was a sad, pitying look. "You know what the really pathetic part is? He didn't even show them to me because he was angry. He showed them to me because he thought your messages were cringy. He felt sorry for you. Said you were so desperate for validation you'd throw away a great guy for the possibility of attention from someone who was never even interested." She walked away, leaving me standing there with my wine and ice cream, feeling smaller than I'd ever felt in my life. Connor had screenshotted my messages, shown them to his fiancée, laughed about me with her. I wasn't the temptress I imagined, I was a joke. The drive home was brutal. Every love song on the radio felt like mockery. I thought about Blake, probably at home cooking one of his elaborate dinners for himself, finally free of a woman who couldn't appreciate what she had. I thought about Connor and Sarah, planning their wedding without any drama about open relationships or polyamory or whatever lies I'd been telling myself. My therapist says I need to learn from this, to grow, to figure out why I sabotage good things. But I already know why. I'm selfish. I'm greedy. I convinced myself I was more evolved than everyone else, that I could game the system and have my cake and eat it too. Turns out I didn't evolve, I just unraveled.